Good evening and welcome to the Paxmundi show on Darkcity Radio every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. GMT, the Paxmundi show. I'm your host, Nigel, with War, Peace and Resistance news on the Paxmundi show. First news tonight on Guantanamo. The military is claiming that the hunger strike is ending. This is because it is the holy month of Ramadan, and some of the hunger strikers have temporarily ended their hunger strike so that they can participate in these religious festivities by breaking the fast with what they call the iftar, the first meal in the evening. So the lawyers for the prisoners state definitely the hunger strike is still continuing. Meanwhile, a federal judge, U.S. federal judge, has ordered the military commanders at Guantanamo Bay prison to stop conducting invasive genital searches of the prisoners following a meeting with their lawyers. Judge Royce Lambert ruled that the searches were aimed at hindering the prisoners' access to their legal counsels. The choice between submitting to a search procedure that is religiously and culturally abhorrent or foregoing legal advice effectively represents no choice for these devout Muslims. So Judge Lambert has also said that the prisoners who are weakened by the ongoing hunger strike must be allowed to meet with their lawyers at their housing camp instead of being forced to travel. On Thursday, the military counted 104 hunger strikers at the prison, claiming 2 had ended the strike. 45 are being force-fed. This week in London, 6 women climbers climbed with the environmental group Greenpeace, actually climbed the tallest building in Western Europe. This is the 1,000-foot high Shard Tower, very iconic building in London, and it took them over 15 hours to scale this building. A Greenpeace spokesperson said they chose the building because it is in full sight of Shell's offices. A spokesperson, Layla Dean, said this is one of our biggest actions ever, and it really is a huge ascent to do. 310 metres, 1,017 foot in the air. So hopefully this will really bring home to Shell that we will not be ignored. They need to listen to 3 million people that are calling on them to stop drilling in the Arctic and to protect our planet. Over in Japan, the Japanese nuclear regulator has stated that the Fukushima plant, the plant that was hit by the tsunami disaster, has been leaking for 2 years. Coincidentally, the Fukushima plant boss died of cancer this week. In the US, meanwhile, following the acquittal of George Zimmerman for killing black African teenager Trayvon Martin, there has been thousands of protesters taking to the streets all over the US. This is ongoing. Clearly, this legal case and the outrageous decision by the 6 women jury to acquit Zimmerman not just of second-degree murder but also of manslaughter has effectively means that black males, particularly young black males, will get no justice if they are shot and killed in the streets, effectively declaring an open season on young black Africans. Following the announcement of the acquittal, one of the jurors has made a statement to the press stating that she is 101% clear that George Zimmerman did no wrong. George Zimmerman himself, meanwhile, made a statement to CNN News that God had ordained the killing of Trayvon Martin. So this is clearly something that's going to continue to reopen, the racial rift in the U.S. and highlight the fact that the U.S. Justice system it has one law for whites and one law for people of colour. There is now a lot of pressure on the US government to look at actually taking Zimmerman, either prosecuting him for hate crimes possibly, or there is the potential that he could actually face a civil suit. So the Justice Department has reopened its investigation of Zimmerman for potential hate crime charges in Trayvon's killing. The federal inquiry was suspended while Zimmerman's trial by the authorities in Florida took place. In addition to the federal probe, Zimmerman could also face a civil lawsuit by Trayvon Martin's family. On Sunday, 2 of the Trayvon's cousins spoke out from the family's Florida church. Roberta Felton said, "Just remember, Trayvon, as Sabrina always said, could have been your son, could have been my baby, could have been anyone in America's baby, just walking to the store and coming back with Skittles and iced tea. Things do happen in life, sometimes it's not fair." Aisha Felton stated, "We don't want this to happen to anyone else again. There's no reason for this to happen to any other families. No one should have to go through this." Over in Russia, the case of Edward Snowden continues to develop. The most recent development is that Snowden has now agreed to seek temporary asylum in Russia. Initially, he was offered asylum in Russia, but this was conditional on Snowden stopping harming the US interests. Now, he states he's not harming the US interests. He's at what he's done and what he's continuing to do to release evidence of US spying and unwarranted, unlawful spying is actually in the interests of the US people and the world community. So in a kind of standoff, Russia has now agreed that they will offer him conditional asylum. Again, he's agreed that he's going to take this. This would be a temporary asylum, just so that he can have the legality, the papers necessary to apply for asylum in one of the other countries that has offered him permanent asylum in Latin America. The problem has been that following the US revocation of his passport after he fled Hong Kong, he has had no patience in order to actually move on to a third country. So clearly this development may, allow him to finally, move on to a place of permanent refuge in Latin America, whether it is Nicaragua, Bolivia, or Venezuela, the countries that have offered him asylum so far, where he will be able to continue to publicize the issues that he's exposed. So in a recent statement, Edward Snowden said, "I did not seek to enrich myself. I did not seek to sell US secrets. I did not partner with any foreign government to guarantee my safety. I ask for your assistance in requesting guarantees of safe passage from the relevant nations in securing my travel to Latin America, as well as requesting asylum in Russia until such times as these states accede to law and my legal travel is permitted." In response to this, the White House has accused Russia of providing Snowden with a propaganda platform, despite his statements, which I just read, about seeking temporary asylum in Russia. The US administration continues to demand that Russia should send him back to the US to be placed in custody and prosecuted. The White House Secretary Jay Carney stated, "I would simply say that providing a propaganda platform for Mr. Snowden runs counter to the Russian government's previous declarations of Russia's neutrality, and that they have no control over his presence in the airport." The US spokesperson Jan Psaki also warned that granting Snowden asylum by Russia or any other country could jeopardize US ties. In Iraq this week, the sectarian violence that has continued over the last 3 months continued, and at least 50 people were killed this week in a wave of bombings across Iraq. At least 28 died and 98 were wounded when 3 car bombings hit the city of Basra. Iraq is continuing to see its worst sectarian violence since 2008, with more than 2,800 killed since the beginning of April. Okay, in Mexico, the leader of the Zetas drug cartel has been captured in Mexico. This is a notorious drug cartel which was actually set up by the military, by paramilitary forces from the Mexican armed forces, and this notorious leader, Miguel Angel Trevino Morales, had been accused of, lots of charges, including torture, murder, money laundering, and importing guns. So he's been captured, and that is just another phase in the ongoing vicious drug-fueled war in Mexico, where the problem really of the US war on drugs has been exported to Mexico. Mexico has been flooded intentionally by the US State Department with military caliber weapons, and there are daily disappearances, kidnappings, and mass killings. The UN has stated that Syria's refugee situation is the worst since the Rwandan genocide. The UN continues to warn that the conflict in Syria is fueling the worst refugee crisis since the Rwandan genocide. On Tuesday, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Antonio Guterres, said that most of Syria's 1.8 million refugees have fled since the beginning of this year. He stated there are now 1.8 million Syrian refugees known to the UNHRC in the region. 2/3 of them have fled Syria since the beginning of this year, an average of over 6,000 people a day. We have not seen a refugee outflow escalate at such a frightening rate since the Rwandan genocide almost 20 years ago. This crisis has been going on for much longer than anyone had feared, with unbearable humanitarian consequences. Meanwhile, there's been no news about the scheduled peace talks between the different parties, between the US, Russia, and including the Syrian government, although the Syrian opposition, Syrian National Council, has stated they won't be taking a part in these talks. The talks were scheduled to take place in July. We're now getting to the second half of July, and there's still no news on that scheduled peace conference. So one of the main issues that I'm going to be talking about tonight is the UK spying, UK spy state, and how the UK spy state is starting to unravel following Edward Snowden's revelations about the UK's activities as a part of US global surveillance, and also UK internal surveillance of the telecommunications. So the organisation Privacy International, which is an international organisation founded in 1990, whose goal is to protect the right to individual privacy across the globe. They are launching a legal challenge against the UK government, which will be heard in a secret tribunal hearing. More information about Privacy International can be found at their website, www.privacyinternational.org. Now, following the revelations of Edward Snowden regarding the UK government's involvement in mass surveillance of UK and US citizens and businesses, Privacy International has launched a legal case against the British government. They maintain that the UK government has been covertly cooperating with the US intelligence agency to carry out the largest communications surveillance program in history, without legal basis and without any public declaration of its activities or intentions. Now, the case by Privacy International has really highlighted the existence of a previously unpublicised secret court in the British judicial system, which is called the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. So, Privacy International is challenging the UK government on two separate issues. Firstly, the UK government's failure to provide a publicly accessible legal framework in which communication data of those located in the UK whose data is accessed after being passed on by the US intelligence agencies as a part of the PRISM program. And the second charge is that there is indiscriminate interception and storing of huge amounts of data by the British government via tapping the undersea fibre optic cables, this is a part of the UK government's Tempora programme. All of this, of course, was leaked by Edward Snowden. Now, reports state that the UK had access to the PRISM programme since at least June 2010. So this really accounts for the lack of any real debate about these issues within the British political system, because at that point we had a Labour government. This was under Gordon Brown's Labour government, that already this surveillance was ongoing, and therefore the Labour opposition to the current Conservative and Liberal Democrat coalition is really it's silent because they are complicit in this unlawful surveillance. So the reports state that since in 2012 the PRISM programme generated 197 intelligence reports in the UK, by the UK intelligence services from GCHQ. Now, all of this was without any legal oversight, without any legal framework through which British citizens could know how, when, or why this spying on them was taking place. The UK government runs a secret spy state, which makes it impossible for them to be held accountable. For example, the absence of such a framework to allow citizens to know that this data is being held, their private data is being held, is being used and stored and analysed, is a clear breach of the UK government's commitment to the European Convention of Human Rights Treaty, particularly Article 8, the right to privacy. One can see why the UK government finds the European Convention on Human Rights such an obstacle, and why they have stated, Theresa May, the Home Secretary, has stated that the coalition government intends to renegotiate their agreement with the European Human Rights Convention. So, Privacy International law lawyers originally filed their claim to be heard in what is called the administrative court, which this is where most claims regarding government departments' activities are heard. Now, this would have been heard in a public hearing, to which not only their lawyers, but also members of the press and members of the public would have had access to this hearing. But now they have been told that this hearing in the administrative court has been denied to them, and that they have now had to apply for their hearing to be heard in what is called the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. Now, this is a hitherto unknown body which meets in secret, and to which even the lawyers do not have the right to attend, and when they make their judgments, they don't even provide reasons for reaching their decisions. So, this is really interesting. What a dark state we live in, here in Britain, where we have secret hearings by secret tribunals that nobody knew about, and nobody will know, how or why or what happens in these hearings. It's really very Orwellian. Now, I know Orwell was British, and clearly he was probably influenced by what he saw of the British government as a former civil servant, and indeed as an intelligence operative. Orwell was, an ISI agent, both during the Second World War and following. But really, it is Orwellian, and it is clearly worse than anything that we ever really imagined could happen in this country. I think many people have the idea that this country is it is a country of liberty and freedom. That is certainly the myth, but this is the reality. It's a reality of secret surveillance, secret court hearings. Now, Eric King, the head of research at Privacy International, said one of the underlying tenets of law in a democratic society is the accessibility and foreseeability of a law. If there is no way for citizens to know of the existence, the interpretation, or the extensions of a law, then that law is effectively secret, and a secret law cannot be law. It is a fundamental breach of the social contract if the government can operate with unrestrained power in such an arbitrary fashion. Further, mass indiscriminate surveillance of this kind goes against the most basic fundamental human rights to privacy. Now, for those of you who are interested in knowing more about these issues, about what's going on, I will post a link to the legal papers for the case currently being taken against the UK government by Privacy International. Now, in a separate issue, Privacy International has also condemned the indiscriminate use by UK police officers who are taking mobile phones from people as they enter the UK borders, where they are what is called stopped and examined. I don't know if any of you out there have ever had experience of this, but sometimes when you're going through the UK borders, you will be pulled aside and you will be asked, where are you going? Where have you come from? What were you doing there? I've had this experience before, and this is what they call, stopping and examining you. Now, included in that, what they are doing is taking people's mobile phones from them. They then download all of their data, including their call history, contact details, photos, and text messages. Now, all of these actions are taken without the knowledge or agreement of the individual, and all of this takes place under the wide sweeping powers of the anti-terrorism legislation. Now, under this legislation, under the Terrorism Act 2000, up to 60,000 people a year are stopped and examined as they enter or leave the UK under the powers contained in the Terrorism Act 2000. So, this is just one more further example, of the breach of privacy, the overwhelming extension of the surveillance state here in the UK. Dr. Gus Hussain of the Privacy International Group said that we are extremely concerned about these intrusive acts. Seizing and downloading your mobile phone data is the modern equivalent of searching your home and office, searching through your family albums and business records alike and identifying all of your friends and family, then keeping this information often for years. So this is just one of the challenges that is going on, against the British spying state. There is also further actions taking place. Some of you may have heard of the cases which have been exposed over the last couple of years, many of them by the Guardian newspaper, of the police spies. These were police undercover agents who were on a deep surveillance where they assumed false identities and lived the lives of these false identities, joining political protest groups and pretending to be people other than themselves, assuming a false identity and living the life of that false person, and using that to carry out surveillance on these domestic protest groups. So these cases, which some of them have been exposed over the last few years. Excuse me, I'm just getting dry. It's very hot here. I have to apologise. One of the most recent ones was the case of Robert Francis, who was infiltrating the supporters of the Lawrence family. You may recall, the case of Stephen Lawrence, the black teenager who was killed in London, and the subsequent, public inquiry into that case. As a part of the police surveillance of the Lawrence family and their supporters, Robert Francis assumed a false identity, infiltrated the group, and spent several years gathering information about the family, about their friends, about their supporters, so that they could be used, that this information could be used to discredit them. There are many other cases. Much of this was going on throughout the 1980s, 1990s. One case, Bob Lambert, alias Bob Robinson, he infiltrated animal rights groups in the 1980s. There was a more recent case exposed last year of another police officer infiltrating environmental activist groups, the Earth First and other activist groups. Now, not only was it the act of this, the act of infiltrating, that often it was the personal and intrusive way in which these the police acted, in which these agents were set up first their false identities, but often by using the names of dead babies. So they went through the civil records, found the names of children who had died, who would be about the same age as the police agents, and then they assumed their identities and effectively created those identities, along with false papers, passports, driving licenses, etc. The other aspect of it was the way in which they actually intruded and into people's lives. Many of them formed relationships, often long-term relationships, with the people who they were monitoring as a way to get into the group. The assumed method was often to become the boyfriend partner of one of the women involved in these groups, and indeed some of them went on to actually father children by these women, who had no idea that they were police agents, whilst at the same time these individuals were actually often had families of their own and a separate life which they occasionally disappeared back to, and then at the end of their surveillance job, they would often just disappear, and because they had never existed, indeed, they were able to disappear very effectively. Well, with the publication of a number of these cases, the lawyers representing these women and the campaigns in which they're involved have got together, and there will be a class action against the police forces which were involved in these spying activities. And a recent press release by Occupy London has announced, that this legal case against the police authorities is going ahead. Now, what this stated was undercover police use of sexual relationships with UK female activists was part of their strategy to create credibility within different groups. Ecologists, animal lovers, and left-wing organisations. Several of them fathered children, although they already had their own families, and there is some evidence that they functioned as something akin to agents provocateurs, helping to plan illegal activities for the protesters in which they participated but were not subsequently charged. The women involved in the long-term relationships with undercover agents who were using aliases and later disappeared mysteriously from their lives were left feeling used, abused and psychologically distraught. Some of them are now going to court to stop this practice. A recent Occupy London General Assembly produced the following statement that the women who are bringing this case and Occupy London believe that there are no circumstances in which it would be acceptable for an undercover police officer to engage in intimate relationships with either targets or members of the public under the guise of their undercover identity. The fact that this has taken place repeatedly, despite being morally wrong and unjustifiable, shows that within the police forces in the UK there exists institutional sexism, that women have been used to shore up undercover identities without regard for the effect on those women, their rights to a private life. And whilst men have also been affected, the evidence so far shows that it is primarily women's lives that have been abused in this way. There has also been institutional prejudice against members of the public who engage in social justice, environmental campaigning, including a disregard for their human rights. Both of these forms of institutional prejudice need to be challenged and stopped. And therefore, they are calling for a clear and unambiguous statement that the abuse has ceased and will never, in any circumstances, be repeated. That the past, that is, all of these cases of deep surveillance by the police under assumed identities, needs to be thoroughly opened and investigated so that the damage can be acknowledged, that those who were responsible can be held to account, and so that as a society we can come to terms with what has happened to heal the wounds that have been inflicted and be confident that the practice has ceased. That there needs to be action and change to prevent these human rights abuses from ever happening again, including stronger support for whistleblowers, greater protection for the rights of association and expression. Until these things happen, we've no reason to believe that these abhorrent abuses have stopped, or that the police acknowledge their actions are wrong and that they must change. So the further statement has been made by a report issued by the NetPol organisation that was released this week, which shows that both they, NetPol, and the other organisations have been subject to undercover police surveillance. So the other organisations, for example, include the Newham Police Monitoring. What they said is that the classification of protest or domestic extremism serves to justify the classification of protest as domestic extremism serves to justify this form of policing. The working definition covers any campaign or protest group that seeks to change legislation or domestic policy outside the normal democratic process. For example, any direct action campaigns. What was formerly called the Special Investigation Squad, the Special Demonstration Investigation Squad, which included the spy who spied on the police spy who spied on the Lawrence family and supporters. This organisation has now been reconstituted as the National Domestic Extremism Unit. Now, the NETPOL are calling for the disbanding of the National Domestic Extremism Unit. So there you can see, the widespread activities of the British spy state, the British police spy state, are slowly unravelling, being exposed, and hopefully these people are going to be held to account. So we've just got we've got about 5 minutes left. Okay. Well, not got that much more now. Now, just a notice regarding Bradley Manning, an up-and-coming event on the Saturday the 27th of July. There will be a National Day of Action for Bradley Manning. This is being organised by Wise Up Action. You may recall that on a previous show we had an invited guest, Lindy, who came to talk to us about the Bradley campaign to support Bradley Manning. So there will be events going on around the country. I'll try and post some information about these events on the Facebook group, and we'll also give you more details next week on the next show. I know for definite there is going to be a demonstration outside the US Embassy at Grosvenor Square. Now, next week, what I'm hoping to do will be a live interview with a spokesperson from the English collective of prostitutes. And this will be regarding a legal case where ASBOs, this is antisocial behaviour orders, are being used against women to try to class engagement in activities, acting as sex workers as antisocial behaviour. And there is this case which is ongoing of the case of Ms. MC. Now, Ms. MC has had an ASBO, or antisocial behaviour order, granted against her for allegedly engaging, in sex work. Now, I don't know what people think about, the issue of, sex work in itself. It is something that I believe should certainly be decriminalised. Much, like, drug use. It is a crime without any victim. Okay, so to continue, I don't know how much you know about ASBOs, but basically ASBOs are a civil order. That means that they are granted on a very low threshold of evidence. So they are granted by magistrates' courts, but they are granted as civil orders, and therefore the evidence threshold is that of what a reasonable person would believe. Now, that is a very different threshold to the evidence required for a criminal prosecution, which is that of beyond reasonable doubt. So, the way that ASBOs work is that they are granted, and then if you breach them, then you can be imprisoned by a magistrate's court. So this is clearly, a very wrong use of the antisocial behaviour orders. Antisocial behaviour orders are an unjust form of legal order. They don't in any way make society more safe. And next week, tune in and you'll be hearing about the case of Ms. MC from a spokesperson for the English Collective of Prostitutes. So, thanks for listening, and tune in next week to the Paxmundi Show. Thank you.
Promote peace and harmony among nations. Being a new beginning for mankind. New beginning. Finally, after all these years, what I have been telling the public about the healing abilities of these oils has all been proven to be true. Well, of course, I'm Rick Simpson, and this is the Darkcity Radio Show. Darkcity Radio Show. Darkcity Radio Show. Darkcity Radio Show. This is about the medicinal use of cannabis. Lately, we've been trying to get this thing going together in Spain, so people can come and get treatment. At the Compassion Club we hope to form. Darkcity Radio's Compassion Club we hope to form. I had the pleasure of coming into contact with Paul Hayden and all the other great people he is working with at Darkcity Radio. Compassion Club, we utilize this magnificent plan in every conceivable way. It will do much to promote peace and harmony among nations. Peace and harmony among nations. Being a new beginning for mankind. So I hope you will support our plan to build a better way of life that will give both mankind and this earth as we know it a future.